I mean, look at him. My desire might be to make of this boy an ardent husband, a caring citizen, a worshipper of abstract and unifying God. My achievement, however, is more likely to make a ghost.
She kept her mouth shut for decades. Now, the truth is out. One of Richard Burton's old co-stars is finally spilling the dirt on their steamy affair that nobody knew about. And that's not even the shocking part. While Elizabeth Taylor thought she was the only woman in his life, Burton was secretly meeting this actress in hotel rooms across Europe. What happened behind those closed doors? And why did she wait until now to confess everything? This is the side of Richard Burton you didn't know yet. On a cold winter night in Wales, November 10, 1925, Richard Walter Jenkins Jr. was born in a small, crowded house in Pontrydyffryn. He was the 12th of 13 children. His father worked in the coal mines and drank heavily. His mother was a strong, beautiful barmaid. The village was poor, quiet, and coal dust filled the air. It was not the kind of place where you'd expect a world-famous actor to be born. When Richard was just shy of 2 years old, tragedy struck. His mother died after giving birth to her 13th child. Richard's brother remembered their father coming down the stairs, barely able to say, "Your mother has died." Soon after, Richard was sent to live with his older sister in Port Talbot. He later admitted he had no memory of his mother at all, just a sudden, empty space where she used to be. His father, already distant, grew more absent, sinking deeper into drinking and gambling. When he died in 1957, Richard didn't go to the funeral. These early losses, one from death, the other from neglect, left a mark that would follow him all his life. But everything began to change when Richard met a teacher named Philip Burton. Philip saw something special in the boy, despite his thick accent and awkward voice, and decided to help him. He trained Richard intensely, teaching him discipline, speech, and drama. In time, Philip became his legal guardian. Richard even took his surname, Burton, a move meant to help him fit into Oxford and the world beyond Wales. And it worked. Thanks to Philip's support and connections, Richard joined an RAF course at Oxford, formed important friendships, and gained confidence on stage. Soon after, Richard began acting professionally. In 1943, just before officially changing his name, he landed a role in The Druid's Rest, starting a tour that eventually brought him to London. His time at Oxford also saw him performing Shakespeare, which further sharpened his talent. Bigger roles followed. In 1949, he starred in The Last Days of Dolwyn, a film written for him by Emlyn Williams. That same year, he married Sybil Williams. Richard Burton's rise to fame began in 1951, when he played Prince Hal in Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2 at the Shakespeare Memorial Theatre. He was only 25 when director Anthony Quayle chose him after seeing him perform in The Boy with a Cart. Quayle immediately knew he had found his Prince Hal. The plays opened in Stratford-upon-Avon during the Festival of Britain and received mixed reviews, but Burton's performance stood out. His energy and intensity on stage captured everyone's attention. One critic, Kenneth Tynan, was especially impressed. He wrote that Burton's performance turned curiosity into awe the moment he began to speak. Even Hollywood stars Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall came to see him and were deeply moved. Bacall said he was marvelous and that Bogart loved him too. To celebrate, Burton bought his first car and had a drink with Bogart at the Dirty Duck pub. Later that summer, Burton played Henry V, showing audiences a more complex and emotional king. With co-stars like Barbara Jefford and Hazel Penwarden, he gave the role new depth. Critics started calling him the next Laurence Olivier, which was the highest compliment for a Shakespearean actor at the time. A few years later, in 1953, Burton joined the Old Vic Theatre's ambitious plan to perform every Shakespeare play over 5 years. This was a turning point in his career. He played Hamlet with Claire Bloom as Ophelia. Critics noticed how he gave new meaning to lines that had been heard 1,000 times before. His Hamlet was thoughtful and intense, setting him apart from earlier actors in the role. In Twelfth Night, he took a very different path. He became Sir Toby Belch, a funny, drunken knight. He was almost unrecognizable, going from prince to clown with ease. His timing and physical comedy surprised critics, who mostly knew him for serious roles. The production was rich in detail, with costumes inspired by old paintings and a setting that looked like an Italian garden. His greatest challenge that season may have been Coriolanus, where he played a proud Roman general. Sharing the stage with actors like Claire Bloom and Fay Compton, Burton captured the tension between pride and duty. These 3 performances, in tragedy, comedy, and political drama, proved he could do it all. Then, in 1955, Burton took another bold step. At the Old Vic, he and John Neville took turns playing Othello and Iago on different nights. It was a rare and daring idea, switching between hero and villain in the same play. The director, Michael Benthall, believed it would reveal new layers in both characters. It did. As Othello, Burton was powerful and emotional, though some critics felt his speech wasn't as lyrical as others. As Iago, he was chilling, cold, clever, and calm. Audiences filled the theater to see how the 2 actors would interpret these iconic roles. One of the most striking choices Burton made was refusing to wear blackface for Othello. Instead, he used subtle makeup to suggest character without resorting to stereotype. This was bold for the time and showed his respect for the role. Burton later said that switching between the 2 characters gave him deep insight into the story and into acting itself. It shaped how he approached every role afterward. In 1960, he made another surprising move. He went to Broadway to play King Arthur in the musical Camelot. Though he had little experience with musicals, his performance was a success. He brought seriousness and heart to the young king, showing Arthur's journey from idealism to disappointment. The show opened at the Majestic Theatre and ran for over 800 performances. Burton even won a Tony Award, his only one. He starred alongside Julie Andrews and Robert Goulet. Their chemistry lit up the stage, even though the show had a rough start. Early previews dragged on for hours and had to be cut down. But the final version won over audiences and became a cultural event. The show became even more famous after the death of President John F. Kennedy. His wife, Jackie, said he often listened to the Camelot cast album before bed. The story of the noble king with a brief, shining moment became a symbol of Kennedy's presidency. In 1952, Richard Burton stepped into Hollywood with his first American film, My Cousin Rachel. He played a young man named Philip Ashley, who was caught between love and suspicion. He acted alongside Olivia de Havilland, who was already a big star. The movie was based on a novel by Daphne du Maurier. The studio, 20th Century Fox, had won the rights to make it after competing with producer David O. Selznick, who had wanted the story for his wife, Jennifer Jones. The production faced some troubles. Director George Cukor left the project after arguments with the writer and producer Nunnally Johnson, and even du Maurier didn't like how the story was adapted. Despite all that, Burton's intense and moody performance caught people's attention. Audiences and critics in America were impressed. Even though he was the lead actor and narrated the film, the Academy nominated him for Best Supporting Actor. He also won a Golden Globe as the Most Promising Newcomer of 1952. That role made people notice him and marked the start of his rise in Hollywood. Only a year later, in 1953, Burton took on another major role in The Robe, a grand biblical film. This movie was special because it was the first to be shown in CinemaScope, a widescreen format that changed how movies looked. Burton played Marcellus Gallio, a Roman officer who takes part in Christ's crucifixion, but later becomes a believer. The movie was a huge hit and became the highest-earning film of the year. Burton got another Oscar nomination, this time for Best Actor. Though he didn't win, the nomination proved that his talent was real. The success of The Robe made it clear he could lead big productions and hold an audience on his own. By 1956, he took on an even more ambitious role, playing the title character in Alexander the Great. The movie was filmed mostly in Spain and had a big budget. For this role, Burton was loaned out by Fox to another studio for a large fee. The film featured an international cast and followed Alexander's journey as a powerful but complex leader. Burton saw the movie as a chance to show he could handle deep, thoughtful roles. He hoped it would strengthen his image as a serious actor. He gave a strong performance, especially in the battle scenes, but the movie didn't do well. Viewers found the story hard to follow, and it was too long for many. Critics weren't impressed, and the movie didn't make much money. This was a disappointing moment in Burton's rising career. In 1955, around the same time, Burton made another unusual choice. He starred in The Rains of Ranchipur, a remake of an older film. He played Dr. Rama Safti, a noble Hindu doctor opposite Lana Turner, who played a rich and scandalous woman trying to seduce him. Burton, with his clear Welsh accent, didn't try very hard to seem Indian. He wore a turban and darkened his skin, but it didn't convince anyone. Off-screen, there were rumors about a brief affair between him and Turner. Some said they didn't get along, while others claimed they had a passionate relationship. Burton later admitted he found her attractive, but didn't love her. At the time, he was still married to his first wife, Sybil Williams. Richard Burton had always been known for chasing his co-stars. From the start of his career, he made it a personal goal to seduce the leading ladies he worked with. Joan Collins once said it was almost expected of actors in those days. They believed it was their right. Burton took that idea seriously. He was charming, bold, and didn't hide his intentions. On the set of Sea Wife in 1957, when Joan Collins rejected him, he was genuinely annoyed. "You can't do that. You're breaking my record," he told her. Burton's romantic life was never quiet. He had a long marriage to Sybil Williams, but it was filled with affairs. One of the most surprising revelations came years later in a biography by his former publicist, Michael Munn. The book claimed that Burton had a secret relationship with Marilyn Monroe that lasted for years, throughout the 1950s and into the early 60s. This wasn't just a quick fling. It went on even as he was married and continued until he met Elizabeth Taylor on the set of Cleopatra in 1962. Around the same time, he was also rumored to be involved with Lana Turner, his co-star in The Rains of Ranchipur. According to another biographer, Penny Junor, it all seemed believable. Burton had a reputation, and Monroe, the biggest sex symbol of the time, would have certainly caught his eye. That reputation wasn't just based on rumors. Tom Rubithon, who also wrote about Burton, said the actor likely slept with about 2,500 women. He described Burton as someone who planned his affairs carefully, using whatever means he had, like sneaking through a woodshed at Stuart Granger's house while his wife was inside. It wasn't just about lust. It was a game he liked to win. But nothing prepared him for what happened next. When Burton met Elizabeth Taylor, everything changed. Their first real moment came during a scene on the Cleopatra set. Burton was hung over and shaking. He couldn't even hold a coffee cup steady. In that quiet, vulnerable moment, he looked at Taylor and said, "Hold this, love. Will you hold it to my mouth?" She did, and later said that was the moment she fell for him. Their connection turned into a full-blown affair, one that shocked the world. Photos of them kissing on yachts in Italy exploded across newspapers. The media frenzy was so intense, it actually bumped astronaut John Glenn's orbit of Earth off front pages. That's how big this story was. It wasn't just gossip. It was a global obsession. Paparazzi chased them through Rome, snapping photos from scooters and hiding behind bushes. The backlash came fast. The Vatican itself weighed in, calling Taylor morally unfit and accusing her of erotic vagrancy. They said her children should be taken from her. The criticism was brutal and one-sided. While Burton had done the same thing, all the blame fell on Taylor. Her father called her a whore. Friends turned away. She later said the Vatican's attack made her physically ill. She even received bomb threats and had to be protected by Italian authorities on set. Burton, for all his previous scandals, couldn't believe how big this one had become. He joked bitterly, "I've had affairs before. How did I know the woman was so fucking famous? She knocks Khrushchev off the front page." He didn't help matters much, bragging loudly in the makeup trailer after their first night together. "We just fucked in the back of my Cadillac," he announced. Things escalated so much that U.S. lawmakers tried to ban both of them from re-entering the country. Some claimed they were ruining the nation's morals. Suddenly, their love story wasn't just a tabloid drama. It had become a political issue. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton got married on March 15, 1964, in Montreal. It happened just 9 days after Taylor's divorce from Eddie Fisher was finalized. The wedding was quiet compared to the wild life they would go on to live. The minister began the ceremony by saying, "You have gone through great travail in your love for each other." It set the tone for a relationship that would be anything but simple. They formed a blended family, bringing together Taylor's adopted daughter and 2 sons from a previous marriage with Burton's 2 daughters. As a couple, they became famous for their over-the-top lifestyle. They had homes around the world, traveled in style, and often rented multiple hotel suites just to give space for their loud fights. They bought expensive art, a yacht, a private plane, and lots of luxury cars. Burton showered Taylor with jewels, including the 69-carat Taylor Burton diamond, the 50-carat La Peregrina pearl, and the 33-carat Krupp diamond. Taylor once joked, "I always thought it was kind of poetic that a nice Jewish girl like me gets to wear it." Their love was intense, but also destructive. They argued often, made up passionately, and eventually divorced in 1974. Just before that, they had acted together in a TV movie called Divorce His, Divorce Hers. It felt like life imitating art. But the story didn't end there. Just 16 months after their divorce, they surprised everyone by secretly marrying again. It was October 10, 1975, and the ceremony took place in a remote village in Botswana. Only 2 people from the local game lodge were there to witness it. News didn't reach the public until 5 days later. Taylor had once said she never wanted to love that deeply again, but clearly, they couldn't stay apart. Their second marriage didn't last long either, just 9 months. The problems they'd always had came right back. Burton once described them as 2 maniacs living on the edge of an exciting volcano. After this second divorce, Burton admitted, "I'm not easy to be married to or live with. I exploded violently about twice a year with Elizabeth. She would also explode. It was marvelous, but it could be murder." Even after moving on, Burton married someone new, and Taylor later married a politician named John Warner. They still stayed in touch. They called each other and met up now and then. Burton even showed up at Taylor's 50th birthday party. Years after Burton's death in 1984, his private diaries were published. In them, he wrote about Taylor in ways that were both raw and revealing. In one entry, he called her an eternal one-night stand and my private and personal bought mistress. He saw her as both deeply sensual and complicated. Their passion often turned violent, especially when alcohol was involved. Taylor once said, "Richard loses his temper with true enjoyment. It's beautiful to watch." But their shouting matches could get ugly. In one diary entry, Burton described a moment when Taylor hit him on the head with her ring-covered hand. "If any man had done that, I'd have killed him," he wrote. There were other moments when the damage was visible. One studio executive claimed Taylor once showed up with black eyes and a swollen nose, taking weeks to recover. Officially, she said it was from a car accident. Richard Burton delivered one of the strongest performances of his career in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, playing a weary British spy during the Cold War. The film, released in 1965, came at a chaotic time in his personal life. Just 2 years earlier, his affair with Elizabeth Taylor during the filming of Cleopatra had ended his 14-year marriage. The press had a field day with what Burton jokingly called Le Scandal. But, despite the noise, he poured himself into the role with focus and intensity. His performance as Alec Lemus, a broken man pretending to defect behind the Iron Curtain, earned him an Academy Award nomination, the David Di Donatello Award, and the Golden Laurel. Critics were especially impressed by how deeply he captured the psychological weight of a man trapped in a world of lies. The film itself won 4 BAFTAs, including Best British Film, proving that even at his most vulnerable, Burton could still command the screen. Just a few years later, in 1969, Burton once again received Oscar attention, this time for his role as King Henry VIII in Anne of the Thousand Days. He played the infamous monarch with a blend of fury and fragility, showing both the tyrant and the desperate man obsessed with producing a male heir. At the time, he and Taylor were one of the most famous couples in the world, earning and spending enormous sums. The studio behind the film pulled out all the stops to promote it, even serving champagne and filet mignon at screenings for Academy voters. The lavish campaign paid off, with 10 Oscar nominations for the film, including 1 for Burton. Though he didn't win, his performance stood out. He brought a depth and gravitas to the role that reflected his classical training and his growing selectiveness about which parts he took. He credited Taylor for helping him realize how often he had sold himself short for money. The year before, in 1966, Burton and Taylor had starred together in one of their most intense collaborations, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Based on Edward Albee's play, the film showed a marriage unraveling in real time. Burton played George, a bitter academic locked in a brutal war of words with his wife Martha, played by Taylor. Their real-life relationship added fuel to the fire, making their on-screen battles feel uncomfortably real. The film broke ground with its raw emotion and explicit language, earning 13 Academy Award nominations, 1 in every eligible category. Taylor won Best Actress, but once again, Burton walked away empty-handed. Still, the performance remains one of his most unforgettable. In 2013, the film was added to the National Film Registry, cementing its status as a cultural landmark. More than a decade later, in 1977, Burton gave one last powerful performance in Equus. He played a troubled psychiatrist trying to understand a teenage boy who had blinded 6 horses. The film came after a string of disappointing projects, and his health had declined from years of heavy drinking. During filming, his back pain was so severe that all his big monologues had to be shot in one day. That pain, though, seemed to deepen his portrayal of a man confronting his own doubts and emptiness. It earned him his 7th and final Oscar nomination. Though he lost to Richard Dreyfuss, Burton had first taken on the role in the Broadway production the year before, hoping it would mark a comeback. While the film didn't do well at the box office, critics praised his work. Richard Burton was once seen as one of the greatest actors of his time. Critics believed he would follow in the footsteps of Laurence Olivier. But by the 1970s, his career had started to fall apart. The strong leading roles he used to get were now going to younger stars. To keep up with his financial responsibilities, he took on several roles in films that critics hated. Around the same time, his personal life was also falling apart. His older brother Ivor, who had been like a father to him, was paralyzed in an accident in 1968 and passed away in 1972. After that, Burton's drinking worsened. His work and family life both began to suffer. He acted in movies that were quickly forgotten. In 1972 alone, he appeared in Hammersmith is Out, Bluebeard, and the poorly received The Assassination of Trotsky, where critics said he was completely miscast. He reunited with Elizabeth Taylor in Divorce His, Divorce Hers in 1973. But the film failed to bring back their earlier spark. Over the next few years, films like The Klansman, Brief Encounter, and The Unfinished Jackpot only added to his decline. One of the biggest blows to his career came with Exorcist II: The Heretic in 1977, a film many considered a disaster. Still, there were moments where his talent shone through. In Equus, 1977, he played a psychiatrist with such power that he earned his 7th and final Oscar nomination. As the years went on, Burton's personal life continued to make headlines. In 1976, he married Susan Miller Hunt, a former model who had once been married to racing driver James Hunt. She was credited with helping him reduce his drinking, which had plagued him for years. Their marriage seemed to bring some calm after the chaos of his 2 marriages to Elizabeth Taylor. Susan was much younger and very protective of their life together. At one point, she even had theater staff remove pictures of Taylor from programs during Burton's Camelot tour in Toronto. But even that relationship couldn't last. Health problems and career pressures began to pull them apart. They started living separately in 1982, though the news didn't come out until early 1983. At the time, Burton was recovering from major surgery and a bleeding ulcer, all while filming a miniseries about the composer Richard Wagner. Not long after his divorce from Susan was final, Burton surprised many by marrying again. In July 1983, he wed Sally Hayes, a 35-year-old former BBC production assistant he had met in Vienna. It was his 5th and last marriage. He was 57. His final film role turned out to be one of his most powerful. In 1984, the film adaptation of George Orwell's novel, Burton played the cold and calculating character O'Brien. The film was shot in the actual year the novel was set, and his performance was chilling. He looked tired and worn down, which only added to the realism of the role. Although his body had weakened, his deep voice remained strong and commanding. Critics praised his work. The film didn't use any flashy effects, staying true to Orwell's bleak vision of the future. The cinematography was dark and gritty, perfectly matching Burton's tone. While working on 1984, he also acted with his daughter Kate in a TV series called Ellis Island. That show ended up being his last on-screen appearance. Then, suddenly, he was gone. On August 5, 1984, Richard Burton died from a massive cerebral hemorrhage at his home in Switzerland. He was just 58 years old. The news shocked fans and fellow actors. He had only just finished what some thought could be the start of a comeback. The official cause of death was listed as the hemorrhage, but many believed it was the result of years of heavy drinking and smoking. Burton was known to drink multiple bottles of alcohol a day and smoked heavily for most of his life. His father once told him that anyone who didn't drink couldn't be trusted, a belief that stayed with him far too long. He was buried in the old cemetery of Séligny, Switzerland, dressed in red, his favorite color, with works by Welsh poet Dylan Thomas beside him. A memorial service was held in his hometown chapel, where his favorite Welsh hymn was sung. Though he never won an Oscar, despite 7 nominations, Richard Burton left behind a lasting legacy. He had acted on stage and in films for over 40 years. He was survived by his 5th wife, Sally, and 4 children, Kate and Jessica from his first marriage, Elizabeth Liza Todd, and Maria, both adopted during his marriages to Elizabeth Taylor. Even through the ups and downs, Richard Burton's talent remained unforgettable.